Dear friends, welcome to our today's webinar, and thank you for joining us. So today, the MGIMO School of Government and International Affairs is pleased to treat you to a special guest, Yandex Market CEO Maxim Grishakov, who is joining us on Zoom. And here in the MGIMO studio, there are the two of us moderators. My name is Mikhail Troitskiy, and I am the Dean of the MGIMO School of Government and International Affairs. And Vasiliy Tkachev, to my right, is a professor of international finance at our school and in MGIMO. So the purpose of our today's workshop is to tap the knowledge of our guest and to talk about prospective careers of finance and business undergraduates. And the reason for this webinar today is that our school is launching a new Bachelor of Science program in International Business and Finance this year. We welcome applications from all English-speaking students. And by the way, the reason for us to conduct this webinar in English is that our program is taught entirely in English. So we are now targeting our prospective students, but also looking to educate and inform current students at MGIMO and other institutions about their prospects as professionals in the field of finance, business, and economics writ large. So without further ado, let me just ask a couple of questions addressed to Vasiliy Tkachev regarding the prerequisites for studying economics as your undergraduate major. So, Professor, how can you know that you want to study economics if you are a high school student? How do you know that? How do you know your preferences? Are there ways to test yourself for your own preferences and figure out that economics and finance would perhaps suit you as your future profession, or at least as your major in the undergraduate program at MGIMO?
Mikhail, thank you very much. It's not an easy question actually to answer, because when you choose your future career, you have so many ways in front of you. And you really should have some inclinations towards either law, either economics, or probably journalism. We are sitting here at MGIMO, and MGIMO is a very special university because we are quite small. Sometimes we call ourselves a boutique university. And in MGIMO, we have a lot of subjects which are taught on all our departments. For example, students of our economic departments, they have lectures on law. Students of journalism, they have lectures on economics. So I think when you choose your undergraduate path and your place to study as a first degree, before going probably to master studies, before going to PhD studies, or probably leaving university and going to business straight away, I think you should at least think what is more favorable to you, what kind of future job is more suitable towards your career. And I think actually to study economics, to study international business and finance, as we actually put it, is a very good start, because you get a lot of good knowledge which you can use in all other spheres. You can work as a lawyer, but the knowledge of finance and economics will definitely help you to understand the situation in the market and the situation in the company much better. And if you know economics, international economy, and finance, of course, you'll be having some kind of competitive advantages as a journalist, or even those students who would like to go to the Ministry for Foreign Affairs, our major, so to say, partner of MGIMO. Of course, knowing economics, knowing finance, knowing business administration, again, gives them extra force which they can use in their career. But I know many friends of mine who, after graduating from the economic faculty, they went further to work in Russian embassies abroad, or they decided to go to work as economic or financial journalists, and vice versa. We know people who graduate from our faculty for international journalism, and they work in banks, they work in real economy, they are heads of the leading Russian companies. So I think we have a kind of overlap somehow. But still, you should, of course, first ask yourself, so far after leaving school, what's your current goals and ambitions. But don't be afraid of this. If somehow you feel that international business and finance is not exactly what you expect, then you can adjust your career a bit later when you have your master studies, or you can leave university and start Facebook or start an Apple company, have a successful startup, why not? So try to test yourself and then go for this. Sometimes also a good prerequisite is probably your wish to do some calculus, to do some research, probably in economic sphere, in finance, it's also quite important. So the question is, for example, can you study economics and business if you don't have good mathematical background? Probably again, if you feel that you have minimum knowledge of mathematics, which we require in MGIMO and at our new future program, then go ahead, test it. I don't think that here we have those people who really think about mathematics from morning till evening. I think you have, if you have quite a reasonable knowledge, a good knowledge of mathematics, don't be afraid and try to test your career in international business and finance.
Okay, thank you. So, how about the design of the curricular design in the programs we are talking about? There's much talk these days about the need to develop soft skills alongside hard skills, alongside obtaining just hard knowledge of facts and research methods. So what's your take on the proportion of time that students in MGIMO undergraduate programs, and especially in our English medium school, are spending acquiring hard knowledge on one hand and soft skills on the other?
Well, I think it's also a very important question, and it's a core, so to say, when we are making a program. We should really try to find a good balance between soft skills and hard skills. Not an easy question to answer, but I can give you two good examples, I think. The one example is quite recent. Last Friday, we had a guest lecture from a person who is Australian by birth, has spent 20 years in investment banking, and he was speaking in front of our MBA students, and his first so to say information was that unfortunately he already forgot everything he studied at MBA program himself, but what is most important is his network. So that network of alumni from the Wharton Business School helped him to progress in the United States, to progress in Europe, and now finally he is the head of a very good financial company in Russia. So what he says, networking is very important. Try to remain friends, try to join as many associations as possible, and this is, I think, more about soft skills actually. So the second good example is when one famous CFO was answering the same question. He said, you know, throughout my career, I spent, let's say, 90% of time using my hard skills, which I acquired at university, at MBA programs, and etc. But when I became a finance director, I actually had a kind of a flip. So all of a sudden, I was supposed to use 90% all the time of soft skills and not of hard skills. So if you really want to progress to the top position, I think you really need to have both types of skills, soft skills and hard skills. If you are thinking about probably middle position in business and in finance, then hard skills, of course, should prevail. But again, it's not so an easy question. Probably our guest will tell us his own experience, and then we will try to see how it fits into his career.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And you certainly never know whether you are going to make it to the top ranks of your company. We are happy and honored to have with us today someone who has indeed made it to become the Chief Executive Officer of Yandex Market, which is indeed a prime platform for electronic commerce in Russia. So Maxim Grishakov is with us, and the same question goes to you, Maxim. What's your take on the relative importance of hard knowledge and soft skills as our future alumni, graduates are going to proceed to getting jobs in the real sector, so to say, in finance, maybe other industries?
Sure, Mikhail. Pleasure to be here. I think it's a very important question as to what's the balance between hard skills and soft skills. I think, I think hard skills will get you started. And if you have a decent amount of hard skills, you'll be well positioned, to start a job in a good corporation, in the company of your dreams, I guess. But soft skills will take you far. I mean, hard skills will get you maybe to a few levels up from the entry level positions. I think if you don't really have a command of soft skills, it's probably a whole different story talking about the wide variety of soft skills, but this is something which you have to develop, and you have to start developing those, during your education, and even more as you enter the business world. But obviously that's very important, because at the end of the day, if you have enough soft skills, you will, for example, for me, like lifelong learning, it is kind of a soft skill as well. So you gotta have a mindset of researching a subject and learning it. I'll give you an example of my example. I'm a journalist by education. I graduated from GIMO a long time ago, and the department was the Department of International Information at that time, and it had nothing to do with business. So I basically had to, in my graduate education and later on, learning by doing, I had to acquire those hard skills which I was missing, to sort of start running first a small department, then a larger department, a larger function in an organization, and then later on becoming a general manager or a CEO of an organization. But really, ability to interact with people, ability to understand and adjust your style, I think, is very important. Somebody asked me lately, is like, what's your management style? Are you like a strong leader, sort of my way or highway, or are you a soft leader? And my answer was, I'm an adaptive leader. And I think a good leader has to understand in which situation to be a very kind of hard decision-making, I decided, and that's a decision. And at some situations, you have to be very adaptive. Listen to people, get feedback, adjust, because it's important for your business and it's important for your career. But I think, again, at least, where I was going to MGIMO, I think still a major portion of stuff you learn would be more of hard skills. kind of general education in the first couple of years, and then as you get to your third and fourth year, you start getting a lot more subjects which you can more and more apply in your entry-level jobs. And that's the way it works, right? I mean, it's important to have general education for everyone. You have to be educated to sort of start your active business career, but then you need to learn specifics. And when I was thinking about what skills now you all need if you choose a business career, and maybe later on I'll talk a little bit about kind of two avenues for me. There is an avenue where you join a corporation and have your career in a corporate world. And then another avenue, which is getting a lot more popular these days, is basically a sort of entrepreneurial startup avenue, where you get together with your friends, you identify a certain need or niche which is not covered, you come up with a product, and you sort of develop it, get financing, and sort of manage it to become a big business. And these are totally different career avenues. And for you guys, it's also important that you, at some point, start thinking whether you'd be better off running your small business but being a champion of your own, or sort of going a big corporation where, especially on the lower levels, you don't have too much freedom to do what you want to do. You actually do what you are requested to do, right? But what's really important now? Well, I think first of all is critical and analytical thinking. I mean, more than ever in today's world, where the competition is for who would make a better decision and who would make a better decision fast. I'm talking in terms of corporations deciding which strategy to pursue, what to do, and where to invest, and so on and so forth. And more, in the past, like when I was starting the business, a lot of decisions were made based on experience. An experienced CFO or an experienced marketing director would say, well, you know what, let's do it this way. Because in the past we did it this way and it seemed to work out. In today's world, it doesn't work this way. It's only data-based decision making, and the amount of data that we generate today is just humongous. I mean, I'll give you an example. In the past 2 years, it's not an example from business, but it's just something I came across recently. In the past 2 years, the amount of photographs made in the world, photographs that you make with your phones and whatever, probably no cameras anymore, or photo cameras anymore, is more than in the entire history of photography for the past, 130, 140 years, just in 2 years, made and posted somewhere on social networks and what have you. So with data, the same thing. There's so much data that's being generated that it requires a specific skill to be able to, upload that data, the data that you need, structure it in the right way, analyze it, and then make the right decisions based on the data. I'll give you a couple of examples later on about how this works. But the other thing is, so imagine you have good analytical skills, you manage to get the data, you manage to derive certain conclusions. The next thing you need is problem solving. I mean, normally the data will tell you, oh, you know what, that niche in the market is not covered, right? So if you come up with a product that will address that niche, you'll be successful. But you have to, you don't cover that niche now, right? You have to think critically. You have to really solve many issues, how to get there first. I mean, I don't know, a couple of things that's on my mind now. For example, lately, we all see the development of food delivery, right? In two ways. You can get your ready food. There's Yandex in Russia, you have your delivery club and what have you. They'll, go to the restaurant for you, get the food, and they'll get it delivered in whatever, 15, 20, 30 minutes. There's also grocery delivery. Folks like Market, Yandex Market, and so on and so forth, they deliver the food that you want. And actually that segment of e-commerce is really on the rise now. It's going to be the next big fight here in Russia and also globally in the next 3-4 years. Who will win that segment, right? But what's not good? So what the guys covered is delivery of an assortment of about 5,000 SKUs. SKU is a stock keeping unit. It's just an item, right? That's a bottle of water is one SKU. So it's an assortment of supermarket chain like Perекrestik and so on and so forth, that you can get delivered within whatever, next couple of days, right? But if someone will find a way, and hopefully a profitable way, of delivering an assortment of, let's say, 35,000 SKUs, that's pretty much all you need ever in life, like when you go grocery shopping, and get it delivered within 1 hour, I mean, that person will win the market. But it's very easy to say, hard to do, right? I mean, you have to have your dark stores, warehouses, logistics, couriers, and you have to make sure all that will get to the right unit economics, we call it, to make sure we'll actually make money on it. So it's problem solving. Whoever will solve it will get the benefits and will get a good portion of that market, right? So it's all that data, all that analysis, and systems allow you to make fast decisions and make the correct decisions, right? I think in today's world, if you can focus on something, focus on this. It's so important to develop critical thinking, to analyze, and sort of to derive conclusions from a lot of data, right?
Thank you. But so what does it take to actually be able to work with data? Do our students need to study maths hard enough to be just, capable of mastering the data processing technology? So I guess then mathematics becomes a cross-cutting issue for our both our new students, our incoming students, and our current students. They apparently should be paying more attention to math, statistics, and everything formal. Could you speak about the role of formal methods and what kind of knowledge of those methods based on the maths sort of groundwork you expect from your staff?
Right. Yeah, I think in this particular case, if we talk about finance and financial analysis, more importantly, if you talk about data science, if you talk about just overall business analysis, I mean, math is a huge prerequisite, right? I'm not talking about the super high math, which is probably needed for theoretical exercises and for people who do like theoretical math. But sort of a good high level of math is very important, because at the end of the day, you'd have to sort of know a little bit of coding and programming, because it's not anymore the time of Excel spreadsheets. Like 10 years ago, we just have Excel spreadsheets, and at some point, when you load a lot of data, today Excel is not an option for you. You have those cloud technologies, for example, software like Tableau, which gives you fantastic opportunity to analyze all data of your business, like in literally minute by minute. I'm not even talking like monthly reports. I'm talking, sort of reports by minute or reports, by hour, hourly reports or so. But math is very important to know. I think a bit of coding, I think it's important, because I think when you talk about GIMO, I don't think you'll be teaching programmers. For that, they go to different universities. But understand how algorithms work, understand how a little bit of coding works. I think it's also very important for business people, for young business generation. I think statistics is very important. And because statistics also teaches you, I'll give you an example, right? We do a lot of market research, because you want to, again, base your decisions on what people think, not on what you think, because you probably are not your target audience for your product, right? But so if you don't get statistics right, there are, again, I hope I'm sort of explaining myself well, but in all market research, there are qualitative questions and quantitative questions. Qualitative, and when you get a small focus group, 10 people, and you ask them certain questions, and based on how they react to them, based on their answers, you kind of have your conclusions, right? But there are quantitative research where you actually have a survey of statistically correct sample, 1,000 people, 2,000 people, 3,000 people, right? So a lot of times I see young marketers they do a qualitative research, but they derive quantitative conclusions from the qualitative research, which is, I don't know, statistics 101, right? Your quality, to give you an example, your quantitative question will be sort of yes or no. Do people tend to buy that product? I mean, if you ask 10 people, that's statistically incorrect. You cannot derive your decision based on this, right? You ask 1,000 people with the right sample size, gender, age, and so on and so forth, and based on the results, compare with other products, you say, okay, well, that's a better product, so I want to launch this one, right? But you ask the qualitative questions to a small focus group. You ask questions like, why? Why did you like it? And then people start explaining why. And with those questions, you can basically improve your product and then do a quantitative analysis again. So I think that's also extremely important. I hire a lot of people and I see that a lot of them, unfortunately, we have to retrain them and reteach them because they just don't know the basic principles of statistics. So it's also math, statistics, and analysis or data analysis are the three very important subjects, I would say.
Okay, excellent. So we might then suggest that if our prospective student panics at the sight of a maths problem, then they should probably consider a career other than one in business and especially finance, right? So that is one of the important litmus tests that Professor Tkachev and I were talking about at the start of our session. And so my next question to you, Maxim, concerns the exposure to real life that students perhaps should be getting during their course of study in economics, business, and finance. What do you think would be an optimal strategy for combining exposure to the real world on one hand with in-depth study of whatever it is, data science, macroeconomics, international finance, all disciplines that the degree basically consists of. So when and where and how should our students start getting this real-life exposure, and what should they have in mind as they plan out their kind of strategy of looking for internships, of collaborating with corporations, of maybe just trying to get a job even before they finish their degree?
I think it's the real life exposure extremely important. Extremely important. I would seek any and every opportunity, to do a summer program with, a company or so. I would potentially seek some part-time employment, maybe at the senior years, maybe like evening jobs and stuff. Because at the end of the day, right? If you learn how to drive a car, basically by watching YouTube, you'd think, okay, well, you kind of know where the wheel is and the gearbox and the pedals. But once you start doing it, it's a different thing, right? So, for example, Yandex, we take a lot of interns. You go to official Yandex corporate site, and we all list them. They're all public. They're all open. Yandex is a very sort of open company, and we have a lot of summer students in the summer joining us and getting some exposure to real world. But I think many companies now are promoting internships because for us it's a bit of free hands to help doing some things, and also what we see now is the generation shift, right? Whoever is going to college today is basically a Generation Z, right? It's a new generation with different values, with different attitudes towards business, towards work. And we know that in 5-10 years, that generation will take over basically, entry-level jobs, and already sort of junior and middle management jobs, right? And we need to make sure we understand what drives and motivates that generation. That we want to take interns. Also networking. You mentioned in the beginning of the conversation the importance of networking. I mean, you all have parents, you all have friends, somebody knows someone, so try to get that as early as possible. You'll see real work, you'll drive a car a little bit, and then when you drive it, you go back to your university, in the fall, and then start kind of applying what you learned, saying, okay, well, now I understand what my teacher told me. Because in the past it was like theoretical, right? So, and I did it myself, like, 25 or so years ago. We tried to get into any job possible within your area of expertise. For example, I had an internship with one of the American public relation agencies. It was called PB & Company. I don't know if they exist anymore, but they had an office here in Moscow in Radisson Hotel on Kievska. And I remember I had a summer interns there, and I was fascinated because I learned a lot of theory in my third year or so, and then I went there and I started kind of applying some of that, and that's very, so, try to get as much as possible. But, I know also some students say, okay, well, I'm not going to go to school, I'm not going to go to university, I'm going to just work and try to get my degree. I don't think it's a good idea either, frankly, right? There's no shortcuts. So you have to go to the university, you have to get your degree, and then you'll be out and you'll figure out if you want to go to your MBA degree and start working. But you have to, there's no shortcuts, right? So it's important to finish your degree as well.
Yes, yeah, I would like to comment on what Maxim has just said, because I fully agree with him, and it's very nice to hear that a person from a real business tells our future students that if you really want to study, please do study. Otherwise, why would you like to spend some time even at this nice and prestigious university like MGIMO? So first of all, study, and then second, if possible, starting from the second year, or as Maxim said, from senior years, probably on the third or fourth year, do some part-time job. And it's a very good example. I really agree with this. And all I know that my friends who really succeeded in business and in public administration careers, they tried to add some of practical experience to their studies, but not to substitute one with another. And the second comment is probably there are two other options to integrate theory and practice, and here we need probably some advice and help from Maxim. So the first one is case studies, when we suggest the students, when they study some courses, do some practical tasks which the companies faced or are facing now. And ideally, if we have some tasks from some partner companies which can, help our educational process and really tell the students, the life is changing very quickly, so here are the tasks we're thinking about, we're trying to solve them, what's your opinion, can you please form your own opinion on this, on that, and we would like to comment on this. If we get such involvement from companies, and I think hopefully we'll be able to do this, then our students will feel that what they study is really important, and it's highly related to real life. And this will give a good competitive advantage to our program. So hopefully, I think we'll have a good mix of theory, practice, and then, of course, it's up to the students to do his best, both in studies and in a practical career, I would say, practical tasks.
Okay, I'm really glad to hear about the business case. Just a quick comment about the business cases, because normally the business cases is something that they do at MBA, which is very important. But if you start doing business, or if you want, or start doing business cases in undergraduate studies, this is really excellent, because that's what gets you close and more prepared to get your jobs. That's fantastic, really.
Okay, and so you Maxim, once told us that aside from your day job as the CEO of Yandex Market, you also do career coaching. You are also interested in career coaching as a hobby. So I was going to ask you to perhaps expand on your comments regarding the main options that our students may have after completing a bachelor's in economics, finance, and business. What would you say are those options? And perhaps you could also give recommendations depending on the student preferences. Should, for example, they look to head straight into a master's program? Should they perhaps take a break from study and work for a company in the private sector, maybe in the public sector? These days in Russia, you find some lucrative positions. And how about PhD in economics? Is that a valued asset across the industry?
Okay. Well, I hear kind of two questions. One is this whole, BA, MBA, PhD. And I have an opinion on this. And the other one is in general, what kind of careers and what kind of areas people can apply to after they graduate. So I'll guess I'll start from the second one. Let's park PhD just for 2 minutes, right? In terms of BA, MBA, there are two schools of thought. One school of thought says, okay, well, you graduate from your BA, you go straight to MBA or MA, get your degree there, and then off you have more options for getting a good job once you have MBA. The other school of thought tells that, and I'm actually an advocate of the other one, where you graduate from your 4 years with a bachelor degree. You kind of after 4 years will kind of see where you want to be. Are you more entrepreneurial? You want to start up and open your little business and see how it goes, or you want to join a big corporation? You are more in finance, or you're more in legal, or more in sort of logistics or marketing or what have you. And I suggest actually to take 2 or 3 years in real business. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you're for those 2 or 3 years on the beach, that doesn't count. Get the real business exposure, because in 2 or 3 years, you'll be able to understand how the company works, right? You'll be able to understand a lot in your profession, maybe already take a step up. You get a junior position, then you get kind of maybe a small team underneath you. You'll manage some people, you'll get some management experience and make a lot of mistakes doing that. And then when you go to MBA, and the MBA is 2 things, I agree with you guys. MBA is A, business cases, B, connections. That's the only thing that matters. Business cases, real life examples of, Starbucks did this and this and this and this. How would you manage that situation? Or there was a crisis with this pharmaceutical company, well, what would you do? And then, the groups decide how they would react, and then they hear the story, how the company reacts, and they draw the conclusions. So once you already, in my example of driving a car, you already drove a car. You already know what it looks like, right? You probably didn't drive all the cars in the world, but you drive a couple, right? And then when you go to MBA, you will relate those business cases to the experience you had. And you could say, oh, you know what? That kind of rings a bell. Oh, we had a potentially similar situation. And you would apply that knowledge there. I think it's so much more important, because if you just continue for 6 or 7 years or so, and you don't have real business experience, I think MBA would be kind of tougher for you to understand, because you don't have the real life experience, right? And then connections. Connections are so important, because the smart people, the people you meet will be all over the world doing different jobs. And whenever you have a question, whenever you need to link with someone, MBA connections work perfectly. So that's important. Now, PhD, in my experience, I think PhD is a bit too much for a business career. I think PhD, if you want to really continue a career in the government or career in science, I think that's very important. I think people who really have business profile, for them, studying for 10 years is a bit too much, right? They need action. They need to go and do things. So I think that's more in general. There are many exceptions, but in general, I think PhD is if you really are totally focused on education, on higher science, and so on and so forth. In Yandex, I don't think that there is any single PhD on the higher rank. Oh, I think that there's one. I know, but that's rather an exception than the practice. And in terms of what sort of roles would you take if you want to have a working 2-3 years after bachelor's degree in economics, finance, and so on and so forth? Well, let's think of a company and the functions of the company. So there's finance.
You can go to finance and become, sort of a junior finance analyst or a junior accountant or a junior controller or so on and so forth, right? Finance is a good career, very good. There's a lot of CEOs coming from CFOs, from finance directors. So it's a good, really avenue to go. What else? Commercial and sales. I mean, that's probably the largest departments in any company. People who actually either buy stuff for the company or sell their products, right? You have to understand the business, you have to understand math, you have to understand economics, you have to understand finance as well to be able a good commerce person or salesperson, right? Of course, you'd have to have your the selling skills as well, but you can acquire this in your first couple of years of work. What else? Logistics. There's a lot now about logistics. That means, storing the goods, warehousing, delivery, moving products from one place to another. You have to understand finance a lot. You have to understand analysis, how you transport, quantity, so lots on logistics, right? Marketing. It's very important to understand what your customers think, what they want, what they need, and how you can tailor your service or your product to what your customers want. Market research, another big area which is getting even more popular now as there's lots of data to analyze. So I think all these sort of functions in the company are open for you after graduating from this type of department in GIMO. Other things like, I don't know, career in HR, human resource or personnel, sort of advertising, I don't know, being a press officer. I think that's probably something that you need to change your courses. There's a faculty of journalism and so on and so forth. I think it's a bit away from the core business. When you talk about company like my company or FMCG company or sort of more or less any other business. So I guess that's where I am on this question.
Okay, fascinating, Maxim. Thanks very much. I think, and everyone knows you're a very busy person, so we should probably let you go pretty soon. So we have a final one or couple of questions for you, and those concern the motivation that our alumni. Our graduating students may need to have to succeed as business managers and or perhaps as financial analysts or maybe as private entrepreneurs. So would you say these are different sets of motivations that make you successful as an entrepreneur, as a manager, and as an analyst? Or there's something in common among those motives, and more generally, what should you expect from your first job in finance, electronic commerce, and more generally in business?
Okay. Do we have like 5-6 minutes? I mean,
Absolutely, we do. Yes.
Cool. So look, I think I would probably challenge this a little bit, and I'd say what's really most important in becoming a successful. And everyone, by the way, defines success in a different way. I mean, an artist would define success differently versus, a business person. But to get success, one of the big prerequisites for me is really, really your mindset. Answering a question, what do you expect from your first job? If in general, your glass is half empty, you probably will start criticizing what you see. This doesn't work. If your glass is in general more half full versus half empty, you'll start seeing opportunities. If something doesn't work, you will think how to fix it. So to me, the mindset of I can and I will is most important to be successful with your life. I think early on, I always recommend when people come to me, students come to me and say, so early on, try to get your sort of personal goals and ambitions. And at this moment, you probably won't be able to really structure them perfectly, but you can start thinking about them and saying, well, I aspire to be this in 10 years or in 15 years, right? So you start, and you will change them 20 times during your college years and early careers. But having a goal
is so much more important than not having one. I mean, you have a goal and you start defining it as you go forward, or you start changing it if you don't think that's actually the right goal for you, right? Then you have to be intentional. Intentional is when you want to go somewhere and you actually make steps towards it, right? Because a lot of people are dreaming about something and just not doing anything to get there. What I call is intention without action is hallucination. You know, if you want to become a big boss and you do nothing to do that, you don't study well, you know, you don't do your internships, you don't try to sort of make a difference to people around you, you're hallucinating, you will never become one. So it's really about concentration on what you want to do. And I hire a lot of people. I mean, now less, my people hire a lot of people, but I probably hired over 1,000 people in my career. And you know what? You know, I taught myself to distinguish, you know, at the first interview, you know, 1 hour talking to a person, if that person really is a passenger or is a driver. And to me, this is, you know, this is like black and white, really. A passenger is someone who, like, you know, there's city trams, the tracks go that way and the person goes that way, you know. Person who comes to work from 9 to 6, and then it's like more of a prisoner. You know, he doesn't want to change anything. He doesn't want to come up with better ideas. He treats the business not like his business, but somebody else's business. So it's like a passenger. He will not really make any difference. He will not make any progress. He will just sit in his chair from 9 to 6 and hopefully works if the boss comes and say, hey, yeah, you have to work, right? And the driver is someone who, even on the junior level of the company, he wants to change things around him. He wants to, or she wants to suggest new ideas, you know, wants to, where something doesn't work, you know, we'll try to make an effort to fix it. We'll go to his boss or her boss and ask what else could be done to get that fixed. We'll care about his career development. We'll ask that, okay, I want to learn this and this, please send me to this program, send me to this training. So you have to have that sort of drive and attitude. And I think whoever has that or sort of learns, this is something you don't have to be born with, right? You can train that. You can train that attitude. But if you train that, you know, the sky is the limit, right? Even if no one answers your questions, there is internet. Like in our early careers, we didn't have internet. You know, we couldn't ask anyone. Today, in a year, Yandex gets 36 billion questions. 36 billion questions, like 25 a year. 25 years ago, where people ask 36 billion questions per year. I don't know, like encyclopedia? Well, maybe. But so you have plenty of opportunities, but if you're focused, if you are a driver, you want to be in control of your life, start early, start now, you know, start at least thinking about this. And I think that will beat everything. So if you are focused, then you will make sure you get the best out of your MGIMO education. They're fantastic professors, they're fantastic people. Now, if you don't want to learn, they won't teach you. They will teach you when you want to learn. You go grab those professors, ask them questions, you know, they'll be happy to help you because, I don't know, 80% will just come in and go passengers. They don't want to learn. You know, you'll see the students who want to learn, you know, they will run and chase their professors, you know, and make sure that they will get the right answers and so on and so forth. So hopefully if I at least made you think about it a little bit, that's already a good advancement. And you know, Mikhail, I'm have a connection. I'm here. I won't be able to like every month to deliver that, but I'd be happy to maybe have a seminar or so once in a while with your students and sort of expand more on a specific topic. Today we covered many things, but we can zero in on certain important questions, and I'd be happy to sort of transfer my knowledge to your students.
Yeah, sure. We'll certainly take you up on that, Maxim. And we have a brief final one from Vasiliy here, and then we wrap up.
Sure. Yes, Maxim, thank you very much for this brilliant story, really very inspirational. And so my question is quite simple. You look very ambitious, very focused, very energetic. How do you inspire yourself? I mean, where do you find energy for such top position for your life, for being so active in life and proactive in life? What is your personal question? Oh, sorry, personal secret. How do you do it? In sport, in art, in nature?
sort of recharging the batteries is actually sports.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
You know, I play hockey, I do skiing, I do sort of badminton on a not on a normal level, but more on an advanced level. You know, I do cycling, so a lot of things. But I don't have time for all that. But I try, you know, the weekends and so. And also kids, you know, my kids are growing up now, but we try to still get out with them and do some sports, do some team sports, and so on and so forth. For me, that's a big recharging activity. And in terms of mindset, I think early on, my first job was at the Ridley company. It's an international chewing gum manufacturer, and I happened to have great coaches, very senior folks, some of them Russian, some of them American, who actually helped me understand some of these concepts that I just referred to 5 minutes ago, and sort of read about them and then try to apply them. I think having a coach early on in your career, coach somebody very senior in business who sort of found maybe an hour per month or so to work with you, it's very important. That's why I'm always happy to help someone, because I got lots of help early on in my career. And I think, you know, my sort of achievements in the business is partly due to the fact that I got that coaching early on in my life.
Thank you. Fascinating, Maxim. So I think we've just had an excellent session, very illuminating, at least for me, and I hope for our audience as well, and for our future audience who is going to watch it on YouTube or Facebook pages of the MGIMO School of Government and National Affairs. So welcome to our school, and consider joining our new undergraduate program in International Business and Finance. And we certainly have our long-time bachelor's, the flagship one in Government, International Politics and Law. So look us up on the internet, SGIA at sgia.mgimo.ru. Drop us a line, and again, let me thank Maxim Grishakov, the CEO of Yandex Market, on our common behalf, and let's agree to meet sometime later and catch up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and best luck. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.